We have got a January 6th hearing that is going to start in like an hour, focused on something that happened 18 months ago.
I wanted to tell his story because obviously at great personal risk and sacrificing of his career to stand up against Trump and his own party in the wake of Jan 6th. And even though I disagreed with him politically, it was clear that he was about country over politics, and that was just a story I wanted to tell.
Why was it so important for you to tell?
Well, I'm a comedy director, right, by trade. My whole career has been about surprise. Like, I love surprise. Subverting expectation is what makes people laugh. And seeing Adam do what he did struck me as like the greatest subversion of expectation in like the history of American politics, right? It was so surprising. It's still surprising. It surprises everyone. I think that's why there's so much interest. And so I was like, I have to put my politics aside. I don't really want to do this, like he's a conservative Republican, I'm a progressive Democrat. Why, how am I going to bridge that divide? But then I realized I'm just going to put that aside. I'll figure that out later, because I have to tell this story. It's such a surprising thing and courageous thing that he did.
It was like Saturday morning when you had a giant party at your house Friday night, and now you got chickens flying around, you have a bad headache, you're only wearing a shirt, and you're like, what did we do last night? That's where I thought the party was.
So your thinking, even at that moment, was the insurrection and the attempt to overthrow the government in a coup d'etat that included 140 Republicans voting to not certify the election. You thought that just might have been a crazy bender, and that they were going to wake up and get their shit together.
Yep, you're going to wake up, you're going to deal with the hangover.
The dynamic between the two of you, how did that work during the filming?
Well, first we had a pretty formal relationship because, I didn't know what to expect. Then we started, and I'm filming, and I'm like, oh, I'm a serious, political documentarian now. And he goes, hey man, I just want to tell you, I really love Hot Tub Time Machine.
Guys, come look at this. You don't think it's a little weird, a bunch of guys just piling up in a big bathtub together? It's called male bonding, okay?
And it was so disarming. I was like, wait, what? This lawmaker, this very serious man, what? You liked Hot Tub? Are you kidding? And so from there, I realized that we had, a shared sense of humor, which was our initial common ground. And then he would start joking around. And, that's just, then the sparring started after that, as we got more comfortable with each
Yeah, it
other.
was surprising to me to find out that a far-left liberal had a sense of humor, so...
yeah, I was shocked that...
Yeah, so it's like, that's the thing, we came to realize, like, both sides think the other side doesn't have humor, and it's like, I guess we actually all do have humor, but it's like, he looks like an angry man.
Yeah, I do. I have a dour face, but you're the only one, by the way, who who thought the left wasn't funny. I mean,
everybody thinks the left isn't funny.
Oh yeah, the Daily Show.
Come
all
to find out, it's true. Yeah. No. And the funny thing is, I've said, like, kind of through the making of this, I've come to realize, like, I actually prefer that he doesn't agree with me. Like, and this is the thing. Again, it is so amazing to me that we've just used political identity as a way to mix and match, which is really the dumbest thing to pick friends on, honestly. But the fact that he doesn't agree with me makes it more fun, because we can kind of rip on each other. And if he actually agreed with everything I did, that like take out half the repertoire we have to be able to go after each other anyway. And so humor and friendship hopefully comes through in this movie, and it's legitimate. It's something that we built.
The fact that the two of you were able to kind of get along despite your views, have this friendly back and forth, is there a broader lesson in that when you consider how polarized Americans are right now?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know I had to get good at that. I took that skill set for granted. That sure, I can talk to anyone about anything at any time, but I would feel kind of emotional and defensive about my point of view and wanting to persuade him of my point of view at first, because I was like, I'm right, no matter what, I'm right for sure, right? And you are absolutely wrong. There is no question that you're wrong, right? And then after a while, I realized, well, okay, he's not going to change his point of view, right? And I'm not going to change my point of view, so then what's left, right? So then I realized that once you take that pressure off, right, and you just start to be curious, about like how he feels and what the world is like and what we do agree on, everything became easier.
I thought the funny thing is, like, so there were a couple times where I would see him getting spun up on an issue and try to talk to me, and I'm like, dude, I've done this for 12 years for a living. like, I'm a professional disagreeer. Your little arguments you're gonna make now are not gonna convince me, and so I'd laugh at it or whatever. And I don't know if that ever had any impact on him, but it is funny because it happens if you're in Congress to you all the time, where somebody gets their, like, I'm not saying this was his case, but somebody gets their, like, one shot to somehow convince you, and they think they're gonna level some argument that you've never heard before. It'd be like, you know what? Yeah, you're right. So just learning to kind of live in that tension is actually a great thing.
Yeah.
So when it becomes more about understanding and listening, then what is I mean, obviously your views don't change, but what do you get from that?
I mean, you immediately find the humanity in the other person, and it sounds, I don't know, maybe cliche or overly simplistic to just say, well, look, see the humanity in someone else, and then things will get better in your relationship. But when you start actually feeling it, you then realize you actually have more power to persuade that person. Like, ironically, I feel like my arguments are better, because he knows I'm going to listen to what he's saying. I'm not just trying to prove a point or make my point, right? So when we're talking about stuff that we know we're going to disagree about, it's so much more comfortable.
What impact do you both want this documentary to have?
For me, it's like, quit putting your political identity as your main identity. It really is something I've grown passionate about. When we kind of swim and live in this idea that we're on the right or we're on the left, and that becomes everything we see ourselves through, it's very toxic. And honestly, self-governance was never intended for that. You were supposed to have an opinion, vote your opinion, and then live your life. And instead, we're living our lives basically voting our opinions. And so for everybody to take a deep breath, relax, see the humanity in people, that's what I would like to see out of it. And also to make sure that Trump never sees the presidency again. That would be great.
You, Steve?
Yeah, I mean, that guy's got to be toast at this point. Forget it, right? He's got to go. But yeah, I absolutely agree. Things have become so toxic that now we have to deal with that toxicity. And there's a moment at the end of the movie that I was struck by, because I was asking him a question and then his answer to me was so revelatory, but it made a big impression on me. And that, even though he was willing to sacrifice his career, his social circle and all these other things, he talks about how he was unwilling to sacrifice this desire to serve. He was unwilling to give himself over to cynicism. Right, and I tend to be pretty cynical. I think people tend to be pretty cynical, and I think maybe that's the road to all this toxicity. I think we have to, as you said, take a deep breath. Let's not be so cynical. Let's actually believe in things, right? Let's believe that we can get along. There's an element, every time I say that, it feels or sounds cliche, but we are in this moment, so I'm not going to judge it, right? If we're in a moment where we have to figure out how to get along, then that's the job. And so I hope that people watch the movie and, if you don't agree with me or you don't agree with Adam, that you understand that that's really what this story is about.
And we guarantee you'll agree with one of us.
Yeah.
That's one thing you can both agree on.
Yeah.